Starlight, Die. A romance sleep story presented by Bedtime Stories. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath. And now, let the story begin. The night sky over Havenwood was a canvas of impossible depth, a shimmering tapestry woven from a billion distant suns. There were no city lights to dilute its grandeur here, only the soft glow of the moon, the whisper of the pines, and the occasional twinkle from a distant farmhouse window. It was a sky that called to the soul, promising secrets and wonders to anyone willing to look up. For Ilara Vance, it was more than just a view. It was her lifeblood, her sanctuary, her very reason for being. She lived in a small, weathered cottage perched on a gentle hill just outside Havenwood, its highest point crowned by a domed observatory. Inside, the air hummed with the quiet whir of machinery, the faint scent of ozone mingling with the earthy fragrance of old books and the ever-present aroma of herbal tea. Tonight, Ilara was lost in the cosmic dance of a distant nebula, its tendrils of gas and dust swirling like an artist's dream. Her eye was pressed to the eyepiece of her powerful telescope, a hush falling over her as she traced the intricate patterns. The universe unfolded before her, vast and indifferent, yet intensely personal. In these moments, the small anxieties of the world faded, replaced by a profound sense of peace and belonging. She was a creature of the night, much like the owls that sometimes hooted from the ancient oak outside her window. Her days were for research, for writing, for the meticulous calibration of her instruments, but her nights belonged to the stars. Her hair, the color of rich earth, was often tangled from hours spent leaning over lenses and charts. Her eyes, a striking shade of hazel, held the glint of distant starlight, sharp with intelligence and soft with wonder. She was 32, and while many of her peers had settled into conventional lives, Ilara had chosen a different path, one illuminated by celestial bodies rather than streetlights. Havenwood was a quiet town, known more for its artisanal cheese and hiking trails than for anything remotely scientific. Most of its residents regarded Ilara with a mixture of respectful curiosity and gentle amusement. She was the stargazing lady, a charming eccentric who contributed to the local almanac with her weather predictions, and occasionally hosted open-house stargazing nights, drawing a surprising number of visitors from bigger cities desperate for a glimpse of true darkness. As the first tendrils of dawn began to paint the eastern sky with hues of rose and lavender, Ilara sighed, a quiet sound of contentment and reluctant farewell. She meticulously covered the telescope, powered down her equipment, and stepped out onto the small balcony that wrapped around her observatory. The cool morning air kissed her face, a refreshing contrast to the warmth of her heated dome. Below, Havenwood still slept, a scattering of lights like fallen stars. She watched as the brightest stars faded, one by one, swallowed by the encroaching sun. It was a familiar ritual, the universe closing its doors for a brief respite before reopening its majestic show. Ilara made her way downstairs to her cozy kitchen, where a well-loved kettle was already whistling. Her cottage was a reflection of her inner world, organized chaos. Bookshelves overflowed with astronomy texts, mythology, and dog-eared poetry. Maps of constellations adorned the walls alongside framed photographs of nebulae she had captured herself. A large, comfortable armchair by the fireplace was draped with a thick, hand-knitted blanket, a testament to many chilly nights spent lost in thought. After a breakfast of oatmeal and strong coffee, Ilara settled at her desk, sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Her current project involved cataloging the light pollution levels in surrounding areas, a continuous effort to advocate for the preservation of Havenwood's pristine dark skies. It was a lonely battle sometimes, but one she waged with unwavering dedication. This morning, however, her usual peace was disturbed by a flyer she'd picked up at the general store yesterday, now sitting prominently on her desk. It announced a town hall meeting. The topic: proposed development of the old Willow Creek Mill site. Ilara frowned. The Willow Creek Mill was an abandoned textile mill on the outskirts of town, a sprawling brick structure that had stood derelict for decades. Whispers of its redevelopment had circulated for years, but nothing concrete had ever materialized. Now, it seemed something was finally happening. She hoped it wasn't another proposal for a brightly lit shopping center or a sprawling residential complex that would inevitably spill light into the very skies she fought to protect. She made a mental note to attend. Her voice, though quiet, held authority when it came to the night sky, and she wasn't afraid to use it. 1. The town hall meeting was held 2 evenings later in the old community center, a building that smelled faintly of polished wood and forgotten potlucks. Alara arrived early, taking a seat near the back, observing the familiar faces of her neighbors. The room buzzed with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The mayor, a kind, harried man named Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat and tapped the microphone. "All right, folks, if we can settle down. We're here tonight to discuss the future of the Willow Creek Mill site. As many of you know, it's been vacant for a long time, and we finally had a serious proposal come forward. Tonight, we have Mr. Liam Thorne here, representing Starlight Preservation and Community Development, who will walk us through their plans." Alara blinked. Starlight Preservation? That certainly piqued her interest. A man rose from the front row and walked confidently to the podium. He was tall, with broad shoulders and an easy, unassuming charm. His dark hair was a little rumpled, as if he'd run his hands through it often, and his eyes, a warm, intelligent blue, scanned the room with a genuine smile. He wasn't overtly handsome in a flashy way, but there was a quiet strength about him, an approachable warmth that immediately put people at ease. He wore a simple, well-fitting button-down shirt that hinted at a practical nature. "Good evening, everyone," Liam Thorne began, his voice a pleasant baritone, clear and steady. "My name is Liam Thorne, and I'm thrilled to be here in Havenwood. My organization, Starlight Preservation, focuses on revitalizing disused industrial sites in areas with exceptional dark skies, transforming them into sustainable, eco-friendly community hubs that also serve as educational centers for astronomy and nature conservation." Alara leaned forward, a slow smile spreading across her face. This was unexpected and wonderfully promising. Liam continued, using a projector to display architectural renderings. "Our proposal for the Willow Creek Mill site involves a multi-phase project. Phase 1 will convert the main mill building into a state-of-the-art planetarium and interactive science museum, complete with a rooftop observatory. We envision this as a hub for both local residents and tourists, fostering an appreciation for the natural world and the cosmos." He clicked to a new slide, showing a beautifully rendered image of the old mill, its brick facade cleaned and restored, but now topped with a sleek, modern dome. Crucially, he emphasized, all external lighting will be fully shielded, downward-facing, and amber-toned, adhering to the highest dark sky standards. "We're committed to ensuring this development enhances, rather than detracts from, Havenwood's incredible night sky." Alara felt a thrill of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't just good, it was perfect. It was everything she had dreamed of for Havenwood. Liam then detailed plans for Phase 2, converting the surrounding land into a community garden, nature trails, and small, eco-friendly retail spaces for local artisans, all designed with minimal light impact. He spoke passionately about sustainable practices, community engagement, and the economic benefits of astrotourism. When he opened the floor for questions, several hands shot up. Liam answered each one patiently, his knowledge clearly extensive. Alara, usually quick to voice concerns, found herself simply listening, a sense of quiet awe washing over her. Finally, she raised her hand. Liam's gaze found hers across the room, and for a fleeting moment, their eyes met. A flicker of something passed between them, recognition perhaps, or just the shared understanding of a common passion. "Yes, ma'am, in the back," he invited, a small, encouraging smile on his lips. Alara stood, feeling a little self-conscious under the sudden attention. "Alara Vance," she introduced herself, her voice clear despite a slight tremor of excitement. "I run the private observatory just outside of town. I just wanted to say, Mr. Thorne, that this is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I've been advocating for dark sky preservation in Havenwood for years, and this proposal goes above and beyond anything I could have imagined." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Alara rarely gave such unqualified praise, and her endorsement carried weight. Liam's smile widened, a genuine warmth spreading across his face. "Thank you, Ms. Vance. That means a great deal coming from you. We've certainly done our research on Havenwood's unique qualities, and your work in particular has been invaluable in highlighting the importance of this area." He didn't just dismiss her as a local curiosity, he acknowledged her expertise. Alara felt a blush creep up her neck. The meeting concluded with a round of applause for Liam and his team. As people began to disperse, Alara found herself gravitating towards the front of the room, drawn by an irresistible urge to speak with him further. Liam was surrounded by a small group of townspeople, answering their lingering questions. When he finally looked up and saw Alara waiting patiently, he excused himself and walked over. "Miss Vance, it's a pleasure to finally meet you properly," he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm and warm. "Please, call me Alara," she replied, her voice softer now that they were speaking one-on-one. "And it's a pleasure to meet you too, Liam. Your presentation was truly inspiring." "Thank you. I'm glad you think so. Your reputation precedes you, you know. I've read several of your papers on light pollution and nocturnal ecology. Very insightful." Alara felt a flutter in her chest. It wasn't often that her academic work was acknowledged by strangers, let alone by someone as engaging as Liam. "That's very kind of you to say. I confess, when I first saw the agenda for this meeting, I braced myself for another battle. This is a welcome surprise." Liam chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. "We try to be the good guys. Our goal isn't just to build structures, but to foster a deeper connection between communities and their natural environment, especially the night sky. And for a project like this, we'll need local expertise, someone who truly knows Havenwood skies, inside and out." He looked at her pointedly, a question in his blue eyes. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Alara asked, a hopeful tremor in her voice. "I am," Liam confirmed. "We'd be honored if you'd consider joining our advisory board for the Havenwood project. Your insights on local conditions, optimal viewing times, even existing light sources we might need to mitigate, they would be invaluable. And, of course, once the observatory is built, we'd love for you to be involved in its programming and educational outreach." Alara felt a dizzying mix of excitement and disbelief. This was a dream come true, a chance to make a real, lasting impact on her beloved Havenwood and its skies, with resources she could never have marshaled on her own. "Liam, I would be absolutely delighted. It would be an honor." "Excellent," he said, his smile radiating genuine pleasure. "I'll have my assistant send you some preliminary documents tomorrow. Perhaps we could meet for coffee sometime next week to discuss things in more detail. I'd love to pick your brain about the best local spots for astrophotography too. I dabble a bit myself." "I'd like that very much," Alara agreed, her mind already racing with ideas. "And I know just the place for coffee." As they parted ways, Alara felt a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just the professional opportunity. It was the quiet connection she'd felt with Liam, the shared spark of passion for something so fundamental and grand. She found herself thinking not just about the stars, but about his steady gaze, the warmth of his smile. The following Monday, Alara met Liam at the Daily Grind, Avonwood's only coffee shop, a charming establishment filled with mismatched furniture and the comforting aroma of roasted beans. She arrived a few minutes early, clutching a small notebook filled with potential ideas and observations. Liam was already there, seated at a corner table by the window, a laptop open before him, though he looked up and smiled as she approached. He was wearing a dark green sweater that made his eyes seem even bluer. "Alara, good morning," he greeted, standing to pull out a chair for her. "Thanks for meeting me." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied, settling in. "I've been thinking about your proposal nonstop. It's truly brilliant." Over steaming mugs of coffee, a strong black for him, a milky latte for her, they delved into the specifics of the project. Alara found Liam to be an attentive listener, genuinely interested in her detailed knowledge of local weather patterns, atmospheric conditions, and even the subtle light bleed from the distant highway. "So, the main challenge will be ensuring the new planetarium's dome is truly cutting edge, capable of supporting research-grade equipment, not just public viewing," Alara explained, tapping her pen against her notebook. "And for the rooftop observatory, we need to consider wind shear and microclimates. The hill where my observatory is located offers slightly better stability." Liam nodded, making notes on his own tablet. "That's exactly the kind of insight we need. We're aiming for a facility that can genuinely contribute to scientific research, not just outreach. And speaking of your observatory, I was hoping, if you're comfortable with it, to visit sometime. I'd love to see your setup and understand your methods." Alara felt a familiar shyness, but also a surge of pride. Her observatory was her sanctuary, rarely shared with outsiders. I'd like that. Perhaps next week, one evening when the sky is clear." Cantabile. One evening, when the sky is clear. Perfect, Liam said, his smile warm and reassuring. I'm genuinely excited about this, Alara. Not just the project, but the opportunity to work with someone who shares this passion so deeply. Their conversation flowed easily, moving from technical specifications to broader philosophical discussions about humanity's place in the cosmos. Alara found herself opening up to Liam in a way she rarely did with others. He understood the profound wonder of the night sky, the sense of connection it offered, the quiet awe it inspired. He didn't just see stars. He saw stories, history, and the future. You know, Liam said, stirring his coffee, my grandmother used to tell me stories about the constellations. Not the Greek myths, but her own versions. How the Big Dipper was a giant spoon stirring up the galaxy, and Orion was a cosmic shepherd herding celestial sheep. Alara laughed, a genuine melodious sound that surprised even herself. That's beautiful. My father taught me the constellations with flashcards and a laser pointer, very scientific. But my mother, she'd hum lullabies about shooting stars and whisper about the wishes they carried. See, we all have our own starry tales, Liam mused, his gaze thoughtful. That's what I want for the planetarium. To be a place where both the science and the stories can flourish. He talked about his own background, growing up in a bustling city where the stars were mere pinpricks of light, his fascination sparked by a single school trip to a remote observatory. It was that experience, he explained, that led him down a path of environmental conservation, eventually specializing in dark sky initiatives. It's about more than just seeing, Liam said, leaning forward slightly, his blue eyes earnest. It's about preserving a fundamental part of our natural heritage. The rhythm of night and day, the ecological balance, even our own sense of wonder, they all depend on a truly dark sky. Alara felt a deep resonance with his words. He articulated the very essence of her life's work. As the morning wore on, they moved beyond work, sharing anecdotes about Havenwood, favorite books, and even a surprisingly animated debate about the best kind of hiking boots. Alara found herself laughing more freely than she had in months. Liam had a gentle wit, a way of drawing her out without making her feel exposed. When they finally packed up, the cafe was bustling with the lunchtime crowd. This was wonderful, Liam, Alara said genuinely. I feel like we've covered so much ground. Agreed, he replied, his gaze lingering on hers. And I'm really looking forward to that visit to your observatory. Maybe we can try for Thursday night? The forecast looks promising for a clear sky. Thursday it is, Alara confirmed, a warmth spreading through her. As she walked home, the quiet hum of the town felt different, imbued with a new energy. The prospect of working with Liam, of sharing her cosmic passion with someone who truly understood, filled her with an exhilarating sense of purpose. And, she admitted to herself, there was a budding curiosity about Liam himself, a gentle magnetic pull she hadn't anticipated. The stars, it seemed, had just aligned in a most unexpected and delightful way. That evening, as she performed her usual preparations for a night of stargazing, Alara found her thoughts drifting from the meticulous tasks to the memory of Liam's easy smile, the sincerity in his eyes. She pictured him, not as a faceless project manager, but as a kindred spirit, someone whose own light seemed to shine with a gentle, steady warmth. The vastness of the universe still captivated her, but now, a new, earthly constellation had begun to form in her own personal sky, drawing her gaze ever closer. The thought of Thursday night, of sharing her sacred space with him, filled her with a delicious anticipation. She knew, deep in her heart, that this was just the beginning of something truly special, a story written under the starlight. The days leading up to Thursday night passed in a blur of excited anticipation for Alara. Her usual meticulous routine felt imbued with a new purpose. She cleaned her small apartment with an extra flourish, polishing the surfaces of her bookshelves until they gleamed, arranging her collection of celestial charts and astronomy books with an almost ritualistic care. The scent of her jasmine incense, usually reserved for contemplative evenings, now seemed to hum with a subtle promise. She even considered, then dismissed, the idea of baking something elaborate, opting instead for a selection of artisanal cheeses, crusty bread from the local bakery, and a bottle of a light, crisp white wine, simple, elegant, and conducive to easy conversation under the stars. Her mind, usually a bustling galaxy of scientific theories and cosmic phenomena, now found itself orbiting a single bright star, Leo. She replayed their conversations, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the intelligent curiosity in his gaze as she spoke about her work. He wasn't just handsome, he possessed a quiet strength, a genuine kindness that resonated deep within her. She found herself smiling at random moments, a warmth blossoming in her chest that had nothing to do with the summer sun. Thursday arrived, ushered in by a clear azure sky, a promising omen. As evening approached, a nervous flutter joined the delicious anticipation. What if it wasn't as magical as she imagined? What if they ran out of things to say? She chided herself, reminding herself of the easy flow of their previous encounters. This was Leo, the man who saw the universe as she did, who understood the profound silence of cosmic awe. She dressed carefully, choosing a soft, flowing dress, the color of twilight, comfortable, yet elegant. Her hair, usually swept up in a practical knot, was left down, framing her face in gentle waves. At precisely 7 o'clock, a soft knock echoed through her apartment. Taking a deep breath, Alara walked to the door, her heart doing a little leap. Leo stood there, a bottle of dark, rich red wine in one hand, a small, beautifully wrapped box in the other. He wore a simple, well-fitting shirt that brought out the warmth in his eyes, and his smile was as open and genuine as she remembered. "Alara," he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. "Good to see you." "Leo," she replied, a genuine smile lighting up her face. "Come in." He stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over her apartment, lingering on the large, gleaming telescope in the corner. "Wow," he breathed, a note of reverence in his voice. "This is incredible, like a personal observatory." "It's my sanctuary," she admitted, feeling a flush of pleasure at his appreciation. "And tonight, it's ours." She gestured to the small dining table set with the cheese, bread, and wine. "I hope you like white, but your red will be a welcome addition." "Perfect," he said, setting his gifts on the table. "This is for you," he added, pushing the small box towards her. Alara carefully unwrapped it to reveal a delicate silver necklace. A tiny, exquisitely detailed pendant of the moon, its surface etched with craters and mares, hung from the chain. "Oh, Leo," she whispered, touching the cool metal. "It's beautiful." "I saw it and thought of you," he said, a faint blush on his cheeks. "The moon, always there, a constant companion to our planet, watching over us." "It's perfect," she repeated, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." She held it up. "Could you?" He nodded, taking the necklace from her. As he fastened the clasp at the back of her neck, his fingers brushed against her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. The closeness, the shared moment of quiet intimacy, felt profound. She caught his gaze in the reflection of her polished telescope, and for a fleeting second, the entire universe seemed to condense into the space between them. They settled down with their wine and food, the initial polite formality quickly melting away into comfortable conversation. They talked about their week, about their work, Alara explaining the intricacies of her atmospheric research, Leo sharing anecdotes from his architectural projects, describing the challenges and joys of bringing structures to life. He spoke of the satisfaction of seeing a building rise from blueprints, a tangible creation from abstract ideas, and Alara found herself drawn to his passion, just as he was to hers. "It's like you're creating new constellations on Earth," she mused, cutting a piece of cheese. "Building new points of reference for people." He smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. "And you're mapping the ones already there, showing us their stories. We're both, in a way, trying to make sense of the vastness, aren't we?" The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from work to hobbies, from childhood memories to future dreams. Alara found herself sharing details she rarely divulged, her quiet upbringing, her early fascination with the night sky, the solitary joy of discovery. Leo listened intently, his gaze unwavering, making her feel seen and understood in a way she hadn't experienced before. He, in turn, spoke of his close-knit family, his love for hiking in the mountains, and a quiet dream of one day designing sustainable, off-grid communities. As twilight deepened, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Alara felt a gentle shift in the atmosphere of her apartment. The air, once filled with nervous energy, now hummed with a quiet connection. "The stars will be out soon," she announced, rising from the table. "Ready to explore?" "More than ready," Leo replied, his eyes sparkling. Alara led him to the telescope, a magnificent instrument with a polished brass casing and intricate gears. This is Celeste, she introduced, patting its side. My faithful companion. Leo ran a hand along the cool metal. She's beautiful. What are we looking at tonight? I thought we'd start with Jupiter, Alara said, adjusting the focus. It's beautifully positioned right now, and its moons are always a spectacular sight. As she fine-tuned the settings, her movements were practiced and graceful. Leo watched, utterly captivated, not just by the technology, but by the focused intensity in her eyes, the way her brow furrowed in concentration. When she finally gestured for him to look, he leaned in, pressing his eye to the eyepiece. Oh my word, he breathed, his voice filled with awe. It's incredible. I can see the stripes, the great red spot, and those tiny pinpricks of light around it. Those are the moons? Galilean moons? Yes, Ilara confirmed, her heart swelling with satisfaction at his reaction. Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. Each one a world unto itself. They took turns at the eyepiece, Ilara guiding him through the celestial landscape, explaining the science behind what they saw, sharing fascinating tidbits about the gas giant. Then she shifted Celeste's gaze to Saturn, its rings appearing like a delicate, impossible halo. Then to a distant nebula, a cloud of cosmic dust and gas where new stars were being born, painting the universe in vibrant, ethereal colors. It's humbling, isn't it? Leo murmured, stepping back from the telescope, his face still alight with wonder. To think of the sheer scale of it all, and we're just here. But here is pretty amazing too, isn't it? Alara countered softly, looking up at the vast expanse of the night sky visible through her large window. We're made of stardust, Leo. Every atom in our bodies was forged in the heart of a star. We are the universe, contemplating itself. He turned to her, and his eyes, reflecting the distant starlight, held a profound depth. I like that, he said, a quiet intensity in his tone. The universe contemplating itself. And right now, it's contemplating itself with you. The air between them crackled with an unspoken energy. Alara felt a blush creep up her neck, a delicious warmth spreading through her veins. It wasn't just the beauty of the stars, but the shared wonder, the intimate connection of two souls finding a kindred spirit in the vastness. They moved from the telescope to the comfortable armchairs by the window, sipping their wine, their conversation now softer, more reflective. They spoke of the big questions, the meaning of life, the possibility of other intelligent life, the legacy they hoped to leave behind. Ilara found herself sharing her philosophical musings, her theories on the interconnectedness of all things, without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. Leo listened, truly listened, offering his own thoughtful insights, building upon her ideas, creating a tapestry of shared understanding. I've always felt a bit on my own with these thoughts, Ilara confessed, tracing the rim of her wine glass. Most people find it too abstract, too far removed from daily life. Not me, Leo said, his voice gentle. I think it's the most important thing, to remember our place, but also our potential, to find the magic in the everyday and the cosmic. He paused, then added, it's rare to find someone who sees the world with the same kind of wonder. Their gazes met, holding for a long, comfortable moment. In that silence, more was communicated than any words could convey. It was an acknowledgement of a deep resonance, a recognition of a soulmate. As the hours drifted by, the moon, Ilara's new silver companion, rose higher in the sky, casting a soft, ethereal glow into her apartment. Leo eventually looked at his watch, a sigh escaping him. I should probably head out soon. It's getting late. A pang of disappointment struck Ilara, but she quickly masked it with a smile. Thank you for coming, Leo. It was truly special. It was more than special, Ilara, he corrected, rising from his chair. He walked over to her, his hand gently reaching out to cup her cheek. His touch was warm, comforting, and sent a jolt through her. This was exactly where I needed to be tonight. With you. He leaned in, his gaze searching hers, and for a heart-stopping moment, Ilara thought he might kiss her. Instead, he simply pressed a soft, lingering kiss to her forehead, a gesture so tender and chaste it spoke volumes. Good night, Ilara, he whispered, his voice husky. And thank you for sharing your universe with me. Good night, Leo, she managed, her voice barely a whisper. He squeezed her hand gently before turning and walking towards the door. Ilara watched him go, a warmth spreading through her chest that lingered long after the sound of his footsteps faded down the hall. She didn't immediately clean up. Instead, she sat back down in her armchair, the faint scent of his cologne still in the air, the memory of his touch a ghost on her skin. She looked at Celeste, still pointing towards the heavens, and then at the tiny silver moon pendant resting against her collarbone. A profound sense of contentment settled over her. It wasn't just the stars that had shone brightly tonight. It was her own world, illuminated by a new, brilliant light. The next morning, Alara woke with a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in years. The world seemed brighter, colors more vibrant. As she sipped her coffee, she found herself replaying every moment of the previous night. Leo's awe at Jupiter, his thoughtful questions, the shared silence under the vast, star-strewn canvas. The forehead kiss, so unexpected and tender, continued to replay in her mind, a sweet melody. Her phone buzzed, startling her. It was a text from Leo. "Good morning, stargazer. Still buzzing from last night. Thank you again for such an incredible evening. I hope your dreams were as bright as the nebulae we saw." Alara's smile was instant and wide. She typed back, "Good morning, Leo. My dreams certainly were. And yours? I'm already looking forward to our next celestial adventure." His reply came almost immediately. "ISO, am I? How about we try a terrestrial adventure next? Perhaps a walk through the botanical gardens this weekend. I hear the new moon garden is spectacular." A terrestrial adventure. Alara loved the idea. It felt like a natural progression, bringing their cosmic connection down to Earth, exploring beauty in a different form. "I'd love that, Leo. Saturday afternoon? Perfect. I'll pick you up at 2. Bring your wonder." "Oh, me." Alara laughed softly. Bring her wonder. She felt as though her wonder had found its perfect companion in him. The days leading up to Saturday were filled with a similar, delightful anticipation. She found herself humming as she worked, her mind occasionally drifting to the upcoming walk, imagining the vibrant colors of the flowers, the gentle murmur of fountains, and Leo's quiet, observant presence beside her. She realized how much she enjoyed his company, not just for his intellect, but for his calm demeanor, his genuine interest in her, and the way he made her feel completely at ease. One afternoon, her colleague, Dr. Anya Sharma, a sharp-witted astrophysicist with a penchant for gossip, noticed Alara's radiant mood. "Someone's glowing, Alara," Anya teased, nudging her. "New discovery in the cosmic microwave background, or something a little more earthly." Alara felt a blush rise. "Just a very pleasant evening with a new friend," she demurred, trying to sound casual. Anya's eyes narrowed playfully. "A friending who makes you light up like a supernova, do tell." Alara, despite her usual reticence, found herself sharing a brief edited version of her evening with Leo. "He's an architect," she explained. "And he sees things, like me. The wonder in the universe, the beauty." Anya smiled knowingly. "Ah, a kindred spirit. That's the best kind of connection, Alara. Don't let it slip away." Her words resonated with Alara. She knew, deep down, that Leo was more than just a pleasant acquaintance. He was becoming something vital, a new axis around which her world was beginning to spin. Saturday arrived, another day blessed with clear skies. Alara dressed in comfortable clothes, feeling a sense of quiet joy. When Leo arrived, his smile was as warm as the sunshine, and he carried a small wrapped bouquet of wildflowers, their vibrant colors mirroring the lightness in Alara's heart. "For you," he said, handing them over. "They reminded me of you, bright and full of quiet strength." "They're beautiful, Leo," Alara said, inhaling their fresh, earthy scent. "Thank you." The drive to the botanical gardens was filled with easy chatter. They talked about the weather, about a new documentary Alara had watched, about a funny incident Leo had experienced at work. There was no awkwardness, just a comfortable rhythm of conversation and shared silences. The botanical gardens were a riot of color and fragrance, a living tapestry of nature's artistry. They wandered through vibrant rose gardens, past tranquil lily ponds, and into the hushed serenity of the ancient tree groves. Alara found herself pointing out interesting plant structures, explaining the delicate ecosystems, and Leo, in turn, noticed the architectural patterns in the landscaping, the way light played on the leaves, the subtle designs hidden within nature's chaos. They discovered the new moon garden, a circular space designed for evening contemplation, with silvery foliage, pale-colored flowers, and a central reflective pool designed to capture the moon's light. "This is incredible," Leo murmured, his voice hushed. "It's like a terrestrial observatory for the moon." "It's beautiful," Elara agreed, her gaze drawn to the intricate patterns of the silvery leaves. "It reminds you that beauty isn't just in the grand explosive scale of the cosmos, but in the quiet, intricate details right here on Earth." They sat on a stone bench in the moon garden, watching a bee buzz lazily among the lavender, the silence between them rich with shared understanding. Elara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her, a feeling of being exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly the right person. "You know," Leo began, breaking the silence, his voice soft, "I haven't felt this connected to someone in a long time. It's like we speak the same language, even when we're not saying anything at all." Elara turned to him, her heart skipping a beat. "I feel it too, Leo. It's rare." He reached out, his hand gently covering hers where it rested on the bench. His touch was warm and steady, a comforting anchor. "It is," he agreed, his thumb stroking the back of her hand lightly. "And I don't want to rush it, but I also don't want to let it go." Elara's gaze met his, and in his eyes, she saw a reflection of her own burgeoning feelings, a quiet certainty, a hopeful tenderness. "Me neither," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The unspoken promise hung in the air, as clear and bright as the stars they had observed together. This was not just a friendship, nor simply a burgeoning romance. This was the steady, gentle unfurling of two souls, finding their true north in each other, a story written under the starlight, and now rooted in the earth. The journey was just beginning, and Elara, with Leo by her side, felt ready to explore every beautiful, wondrous corner of it. The journey was just beginning, and Elara, with Leo by her side, felt ready to explore every beautiful, wondrous corner of it. Leo's hand, which had been resting gently on the picnic blanket between them, found hers, his fingers lacing through hers with a quiet confidence that sent a warmth spreading through her veins. He didn't squeeze, didn't pull her closer, but simply held her, a silent affirmation of the profound connection they'd just acknowledged. His gaze, soft and deep, met hers, and in the shimmering starlight, she saw not just affection, but a mirroring of her own burgeoning hope. A comfortable silence settled between them, no longer charged with unspoken questions, but rather with the sweet, certain hum of a new beginning. They stayed like that for a long time, watching the stars begin to fade as the first blush of dawn painted the eastern sky. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of dew-kissed grass and distant pine. Eventually, Leo stirred, a soft sigh escaping him. "We should probably head back," he murmured, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "Though I could stay out here with you forever." Elara's heart fluttered. "Me too," she whispered, a genuine smile gracing her lips. They packed up the telescope and the picnic basket with a newfound ease, their movements synchronized, their hands occasionally brushing, sending tiny sparks of awareness through them. The drive back down the winding mountain road was filled with a comfortable quiet, punctuated by shared glances and soft smiles. When Leo pulled up to her cottage, the first rays of sunlight were slanting through the trees, illuminating the dew-dropped spiderwebs in the garden. "Thank you, Leo," Elara said, turning to him, her hand still resting on the console between them. "For everything." He leaned in, his eyes searching hers. "Thank you, Elara, for letting me see the stars with you, for letting me see you." His voice was a low, tender rumble that resonated deep within her. He didn't kiss her, not yet, but the unspoken promise of it hung in the air, a delicate, thrilling anticipation. Instead, he simply squeezed her hand one last time before she climbed out, leaving her with a warmth that lingered long after she stepped inside her quiet cottage. The next few days were a delightful blur of discovering what this new phase of their relationship meant. It wasn't a sudden dramatic shift, but a gentle, organic blossoming. Their morning coffee talks at the cafe became longer, punctuated by shared laughter and deeper confessions. Leo started leaving little notes on her counter, next to the fresh pastries he'd bring from the bakery. A silly drawing, a quote from a book, a simple thinking of you. Elara found herself sketching him more often, capturing the thoughtful furrow of his brow or the crinkle at the corner of his eyes when he smiled. One crisp autumn afternoon, Leo suggested they take a hike to the old Fire Tower Trail, a path Alara had always wanted to explore but never quite found the time for. The woods were ablaze with color, maples fiery red, oaks a burnished gold, and birches a cheerful yellow. They walked side by side, their hands brushing, then intertwining naturally. Leo pointed out different bird calls, identifying them with an ease that charmed her. Alara in turn shared stories of her childhood adventures in similar woods, reminiscing about building forts and imagining mythical creatures lurking behind every tree. At the summit, the view was breathtaking. A panoramic tapestry of vibrant foliage stretched to the horizon, dotted with the silver ribbon of a distant river. They sat on a sun-warmed rock, sharing a thermos of spiced apple cider Leo had packed. "It's incredible, isn't it?" Alara breathed, leaning her head on his shoulder. His arm wrapped around her instinctively, pulling her closer. "It is," Leo agreed, his voice soft. "But not as incredible as this." He turned his head, his lips brushing her temple, then her cheek, finally settling gently on hers. It was a slow, tender kiss, filled with all the unspoken affection and growing certainty that had been building between them. It tasted of apple cider and autumn air, and the sweet promise of forever. Alara's heart swelled, a feeling of deep contentment settling over her. This wasn't a whirlwind romance, but a steady, sure ascent, like the path I'd just climbed, each step bringing them to a more beautiful vista. Over the following weeks, their lives began to intertwine seamlessly. Leo started helping Alara with the heavier lifting at her gallery, moving new sculptures or hanging larger canvases. He had a surprising eye for display, suggesting arrangements that highlighted her art in unexpected ways. Alara, in turn, found herself spending more evenings at the observatory with him, not just stargazing, but learning the intricacies of his work, the delicate balance of scientific precision and boundless wonder that defined his passion. She would bring him homemade dinners, hearty stews, aromatic curries, or her grandmother's famous lemon tarts, and they would eat together, bathed in the soft glow of computer screens displaying cosmic maps. One evening, as Leo was patiently explaining the life cycle of a star cluster, Alara watched him, captivated not just by the science, but by the quiet intensity in his eyes, the way his hands moved as he gestured. She realized how much he admired his dedication, his thirst for knowledge, his profound respect for the universe. "What's on your mind?" he asked, catching her watching him, a soft smile playing on his lips. "Just thinking," she admitted. "How lucky I am to know someone who sees the universe in such an extraordinary way." He reached across the console, taking her hand. "And I'm lucky to know someone who helps me see the beauty in this world, Alara. The colors, the stories, the human connection. You make me slow down and truly gilk trauach." Their conversations deepened, moving beyond shared interests to shared histories. Alara told him about her artistic journey, the struggles and triumphs, the moment she realized art was not just a hobby but her calling. She spoke of her family, her close-knit bond with her younger sister, Clara, who lived a few towns over, and the quiet strength of her grandmother, who had first put a paintbrush in her hand. Leo, in turn, opened up about his own past. He spoke of his childhood fascination with the night sky, his introverted nature, and the mentors who had guided him. He confessed a lingering sadness about his parents, both academics, who had encouraged his scientific pursuits, but hadn't always understood his need for emotional connection, often lost in their own intellectual worlds. "It made me a little guarded," he admitted one rainy afternoon as they sat by the fire in her cottage, the gentle patter of rain on the roof, a soothing backdrop. "It's why I appreciate your openness so much, Alara. You have a way of making me feel safe enough to be myself, even the parts I used to keep hidden." Alara gently squeezed his hand. "We all have those parts, Leo, and they deserve to be loved too." Their relationship wasn't without its gentle challenges, mostly internal ones. Alara, having been fiercely independent for so long, sometimes found herself hesitant to fully lean into the shared space they were creating. There was a quiet fear of losing herself, a ghost of past relationships where she'd felt overshadowed. Leo, for his part, occasionally retreated into his work when faced with intense emotions, a habit born of his upbringing. But they learned to navigate these moments with patience and understanding. One evening, Alara was feeling particularly overwhelmed by a looming exhibition deadline. She'd been working late, her studio a creative mess, her nerves frayed. Leo, sensing her stress, showed up unexpectedly with 2 steaming mugs of herbal tea and a plate of her favorite shortbread cookies. He didn't try to fix it, didn't offer unsolicited advice. He simply sat with her, quietly tidying a corner of the studio, humming a low, tuneless melody, his presence a calming anchor in her storm. "Thank you," she said, finally setting down her brush, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. "I needed that." He sat beside her on a paint-splattered stool, wrapping an arm around her. "You don't have to carry it all alone, you know." She leaned into his warmth. "I know," she whispered, realizing it was a truth she was only just beginning to truly embrace. "It's just new, having someone to share the burden with." He kissed the top of her head. "That's what I'm here for, to be your quiet observer, your steady star." A few weeks later, Alara decided it was time for Leo to meet Clara. Clara was a whirlwind of energy and infectious enthusiasm, a stark contrast to Alara's more introspective nature, but they were fiercely loyal to each other. Clara owned a thriving flower shop in the next town over, and Alara suggested they meet for brunch there. "Are you nervous?" Alara asked Leo in the car as they drove through the picturesque countryside. He grinned. "A little. Your sister sounds like a force of nature." "She is," Alara confirmed, smiling. "But she's also wonderful. Just don't be surprised if she tries to set you up with a rare orchid or two." Clara greeted them with a hug that nearly lifted Alara off her feet, then turned to Leo, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "So this is the man who's stolen my sister's heart. It's about time someone did." Leo, usually reserved with new people, surprised Alara by laughing heartily. He engaged easily with Clara, sharing stories about the observatory and even helping her identify a few constellations she'd seen. Clara in turn regaled them with tales of her most eccentric customers and the challenges of sourcing exotic blooms. By the end of brunch, Clara was beaming. "He's a keeper, Alara," she declared, giving Leo a conspiratorial wink. "Just make sure he doesn't try to classify your art by star charts." The approval of her sister meant a great deal to Alara, solidifying her growing conviction that Leo was truly special. As autumn deepened into winter, the landscape transformed once more. Snow began to fall, blanketing the town in a hushed, pristine white. The observatory, perched on the highest hill, looked like a fairy tale castle dusted with powdered sugar. Their dates moved indoors, often involving cozy evenings by Alara's fireplace, reading side by side, sharing quiet meals, or sometimes just listening to music, their hands intertwined. One snowy evening they decided to bake Christmas cookies. Alara, usually meticulous in her art, was delightfully clumsy in the kitchen, flour dusting her nose and hair. Leo, surprisingly adept, helped guide her, his laughter a warm melody in the quiet cottage. They decorated gingerbread men with playful competitive spirit, Leo adding tiny telescope details to his, Alara giving hers elaborate artistic flourishes. By the end of the evening, the kitchen was a glorious mess, but the air was filled with the sweet scent of ginger and cinnamon, and their hearts were full. "This is nice," Alara murmured, leaning against him as they washed dishes, his arms wrapped around her from behind. "More than nice," Leo corrected, kissing her hair. "It's perfect." He had started spending more and more nights at her cottage. They fell into a comfortable rhythm, waking up together to the soft morning light, sharing coffee and quiet conversations before starting their days. It felt natural, right? Like 2 pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. One morning, Alara woke to find Leo sketching in her art journal. He looked up, a sheepish smile on his face. "Sorry, I hope you don't mind. I just got an idea." He showed her the sketch, a beautiful, intricate design for a new mobile, incorporating celestial bodies and delicate, handcrafted wooden birds. It was elegant and whimsical, a perfect blend of their worlds. "I was thinking," he said, his voice a little shy, "I could make something like this for your gallery. Something that moves, that catches the light, that tells a story of the stars and the earth." Ilara's eyes welled up. It wasn't just a mobile. It was a tangible representation of their connection, a merging of their passions. "Leo," she breathed, tracing the lines of the sketch, "it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful." He watched her, his expression tender. "I want to create things with you, Alara. Not just moments, but tangible art, a life." The word hung in the air. Wife das Shiwar. It wasn't a proposal, not exactly, but it was a declaration. A quiet promise of a shared future, of building something lasting together. Elara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her, chased by a thrilling rush of anticipation. The fear of losing herself had dissipated, replaced by the certainty that with Leo, she would only grow, expand, become even more fully herself. He didn't eclipse her light, he reflected it, amplified it. As winter deepened, the world outside became quieter, more introspective. Inside Elara's cottage, however, a vibrant warmth bloomed, nurtured by shared laughter, gentle touches, and an ever-deepening understanding. They had begun to talk about their respective families for the holidays, a natural next step in their unfolding story. Leo had even mentioned the possibility of Elara joining him for Christmas with his parents, a big step for the usually reserved astronomer. Elara, in turn, was excited for him to meet her grandmother, who she knew would adore Leo's quiet charm and intellectual curiosity. One afternoon, while browsing through an antique shop in town, Elara found a small, intricately carved wooden box. It wasn't particularly valuable, but something about its aged beauty and the secret it seemed to hold drew her in. She bought it, thinking of Leo. That evening, as they sat by the fire, she presented it to him. "It reminded me of you," she explained, full of hidden wonders. Leo's fingers traced the delicate carvings. "It's beautiful, Elara. Thank you." He opened it, revealing its empty interior. He looked up at her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I think this box needs a story. Our story." Elara smiled, her heart full. "I think it does, Leo, and I think we're only just beginning to fill it." He reached for her hand, his gaze meeting hers, full of warmth and unspoken devotion. The future stretched before them, not as a daunting unknown, but as an endless canvas, waiting to be painted with the vibrant hues of their shared love. The journey was indeed just beginning, and Elara, with Leo by her side, felt ready to explore every beautiful, wondrous corner of it, one gentle, heartwarming step at a time. Their first steps together were as simple and sweet as a perfectly crafted pastry, each day layered with new discoveries and deepening affection. Dates weren't grand, elaborate affairs, but quiet evenings spent cooking together in Elara's cozy kitchen, the scent of herbs and roasted vegetables mingling with the gentle murmur of their conversation. They'd share stories from their days, Elara recounting the triumphs of a particularly tricky sourdough or the joy of a child's delighted face over a cupcake, Leo describing a successful surgery or the antics of a mischievous kitten. Sometimes, Leo would arrive at the bakery just as Elara was closing, a thermos of tea in hand, and they'd sit amidst the lingering scent of cinnamon and warm bread, talking until the moon hung high and silver in the sky. He learned the rhythm of her work, the early mornings, the meticulous precision, the quiet satisfaction she found in her craft. She, in turn, learned about the weight of his responsibilities, the compassion he held for every creature, big or small, and the profound peace he found in healing. He started bringing her small, thoughtful gifts, a rare ingredient I'd stumbled upon at a farmer's market, a wildflower plucked from a meadow during a countryside drive, a book of classic poetry he thought she might enjoy. Elara, with her innate ability to nourish, would bake him special treats, savory cheese scones for his late-night shifts, delicate lavender shortbread to help him unwind, or a rich dark chocolate cake just because. Their bond wasn't built on grand gestures, but on these countless small acts of tenderness and understanding. They found joy in the shared silence of a walk through the park, in the comforting weight of his hand in hers, in the way a glance could convey 1,000 unspoken words. Elara felt a quiet confidence blooming within her, a sense of being truly seen and cherished. With Leo, she didn't have to be anything other than herself, and that, she realized, was the most precious gift of all. One crisp autumn afternoon, Leo invited Elara to spend a Saturday at the local animal shelter where he volunteered. "It's a bit chaotic sometimes," he'd warned, "but it's also incredibly rewarding." Elara, a little nervous but eager to share in this important part of his life, agreed. The shelter was bustling, filled with the happy yaps of dogs, the soft purrs of cats, and the dedicated buzz of volunteers. Elara watched Leo move among the animals with an ease and kindness that melted her heart. He spoke in soothing tones, his hands gentle as he examined a nervous stray, his laughter ringing out as he played with a boisterous puppy. She saw a side of him that deepened her love even further, his boundless empathy, his tireless dedication to those who couldn't speak for themselves. While Leo tended to a cat with a paw injury, Alara found herself drawn to a small, timid terrier mix huddled in the corner of its kennel, eyes wide with apprehension. She knelt down, speaking softly, offering a tentative finger through the wire. The dog, a scruffy bundle of tan fur, flinched at first, then slowly, cautiously, sniffed her hand. Alara spent the next hour simply sitting there, talking to the dog, until it finally leaned against the wire, letting her scratch gently behind its ears. When Leo returned, he found Alara beaming, the little terrier now whimpering softly for more attention. "Looks like you made a friend," he observed, his eyes twinkling. "She's been here a while, very shy." "She just needs a little patience," Alara replied, her voice soft. "And maybe a name. She doesn't have one." They spent the rest of the afternoon walking dogs, cleaning kennels, and comforting scared animals. On the drive home, Alara was quieter than usual, a thoughtful expression on her face. "That little terrier," she began. "She just broke my heart a little. She's so sweet, but so scared." Leo reached over and squeezed her hand. "It's tough, isn't it, knowing you can't save them all?" "I know," Alara sighed. "But what if we could save just one?" Leo looked at her, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking, Alara?" She nodded, a hopeful blush rising in her cheeks. "I think so. She needs a home, Leo. A quiet, loving home. And, well, my apartment could use a little more life." "Our apartment," Leo corrected gently, his gaze unwavering. "If she's coming home with you, she's coming home with us." And so, a week later, after all the paperwork was done, and the little terrier had received a clean bill of health, they brought her home. They named her Daisy, for her cheerful spirit that slowly, shyly, began to emerge. Daisy, initially hesitant, blossomed under their combined affection. She became a fixture in Alara's quiet apartment, a furry shadow following Alara from the kitchen to the living room, her tail a blur of happy motion whenever Leo arrived. Having Daisy was a gentle test and a beautiful affirmation of their growing partnership. They learned to coordinate walks, share responsibilities, and laugh at Daisy's quirky habits. Their evenings became richer, filled with Daisy's soft snores by their feet as they read, or her playful nudges for attention during a quiet movie night. Their hearts, already full, found even more room for this small, loving creature. As the seasons turned, their relationship deepened, weaving itself inextricably into the fabric of their lives. Alara found herself leaving a spare toothbrush at Leo's place, and soon, a small collection of her favorite books graced his shelves. Leo, in turn, kept a selection of Alara's preferred teas in her kitchen cabinet, and began to leave little handwritten notes for her on her bakery counter before she arrived for her early shifts. They talked about the future, not in abstract terms, but in practical, hopeful ways. They dreamed of a small cottage with a garden, where Daisy could roam freely, and where Alara might have a larger kitchen for her baking experiments. They spoke of combining their lives, of building a shared home filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and the quiet comfort of a loving animal. One particularly blustery autumn evening, after a long day at the bakery, Alara arrived home to find Leo already there, the apartment smelling wonderfully of his slow-cooked stew. Daisy greeted her with an excited bark and a flurry of tail wags. Leo, looking particularly handsome in a simple sweater, met her at the door with a warm hug. "Rough day?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "A little," she admitted, leaning into his embrace. "But much better now." After a comforting dinner, as they sat curled on the sofa, Daisy nestled between them, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating the room, Leo turned to Alara. His hand found hers, tracing gentle patterns on her skin. "Alara," he began, his voice soft, but with an underlying current of profound emotion. "Do you remember when you said we were only just beginning to fill our hearts?" She smiled, her gaze meeting his. "I do." "Well," he continued, a gentle nervousness in his eyes, "my heart feels incredibly full these days. Full of you, full of Daisy, full of the life we're building together." He paused, taking a deep breath. "And I wanted to keep filling it, every single day, for the rest of our lives." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Alara's breath hitched in her throat. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, was a ring. Not a flashy, elaborate diamond, but a beautifully crafted silver band, intricately carved with delicate leaf patterns, reminiscent of the swirling designs she often piped onto her cakes. It was elegant, unique, and perfectly sheer. "Elara, my love," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my confidante, my best friend forever? Will you let me keep painting our beautiful, wondrous canvas with you, for always?" Tears welled in Elara's eyes, hot and sweet. She didn't need to think, didn't need to hesitate. Every fiber of her being knew the answer. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Oh, yes, Leo. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. A symbol of their journey, their love, and the promise of a lifetime together. They held each other close, Daisy nudging her head against them, sensing the profound joy in the room. The wedding was a small, intimate affair held in the spring, in a sun-dappled garden bursting with new blooms. Elara, radiant in a simple flowing dress, walked down an aisle strewn with wildflowers, Daisy trotting happily beside her, wearing a tiny floral wreath around her neck. Leo, waiting beneath an archway of roses, his eyes alight with love, looked as though he had stepped right out of her most cherished dreams. Their vows were heartfelt and simple, echoing the depth of their quiet devotion. Elara promised to always bake him comfort and joy, to listen with an open heart, and to cherish every gentle step of their shared journey. Leo promised to always be her steady anchor, her greatest supporter, and to fill their home with laughter, kindness, and endless love, for her and for every creature they welcomed into their lives. Their reception was held at the bakery, transformed into a magical space with fairy lights and fragrant flowers. Elara had baked their wedding cake herself, a 3-tiered masterpiece adorned with delicate sugar flowers and swirls that mimicked the carving on her ring. It was a true reflection of their love, sweet, beautiful, and made with immense care. Life settled into a rhythm of shared happiness. They found their dream cottage with a sprawling garden, where Elara cultivated herbs and edible flowers, and Leo built a small, sturdy doghouse for Daisy, who preferred, of course, to sleep curled up at the foot of their bed. Elara continued to pour her heart into her bakery, occasionally surprising Leo with a batch of special treats for his clinic staff. Leo, in turn, thrived in his veterinary practice, often bringing home funny stories of his animal patients that Elara adored. Their days were filled with the simple, profound joys of a life built on love and companionship. Mornings began with coffee shared in their sunlit kitchen, Elara's hand in Leo's, Daisy dozing at their feet. Evenings were for cooking together, reading side by side, or simply sitting in comfortable silence, their hearts overflowing with gratitude for the beautiful tapestry they had woven. One evening, years after they first met, Elara found herself sitting on the porch swing with Leo, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and gold. Daisy, now a beloved senior dog, lay curled contentedly beside them, a soft snore escaping her lips. Elara leaned her head on Leo's shoulder, his arm warm and strong around her. "Do you remember," she murmured, "when we talked about our hearts filling up?" Leo chuckled softly, tightening his embrace. "How could I forget? It's been my favorite project." "Mine too," Elara whispered, a smile gracing her lips. "And you know what? It feels so wonderfully, perfectly full, like a perfectly baked loaf of bread, warm and comforting, and ready to be shared every single day." He kissed the top of her head, his gaze sweeping over their peaceful home, the sleeping Daisy, and the woman he loved more than words could say. The future no longer stretched before them as an unknown, but as a continuation of their beautiful present, a canvas already rich with the vibrant hues of their shared love. Their journey had indeed just begun that day, and Elara, with Leo by her side, felt ready to explore every beautiful, wondrous corner of it, one gentle, heartwarming, and infinitely loving step at a time, forever and always.